Over time, reformers have appeared in many different places with different concerns, some obsessed with trying to reach the impractical. Margaret Fuller was a writer who was willing to commit journalistic sin just to bring out her points on women's reform. Some of her obsession was due to her dad's harshness towards her at a younger age. He was her teacher since females were not allowed a proper education. She was determined as a child, and her stern teaching paid off. She became the first full-time American female book reviewer in journalism. Her book, Women in the 19th Century, is considered the first major feminist work in the United States. The interesting thing about Margaret Fuller was that she didn't just speak of reform, but she lived it. She herself was the perfect model of women's reform, and she showed everyone that it was possible. During her lifetime, Fuller promoted not only women's rights, but she also promoted transcendentalism through her journal called The Dial. One of her greatest accomplishments was her book, which laid the foundation for the Seneca Falls Convention of 1848. This was where women gathered to discuss their rights. At the convention, the Declaration of Sentiments was drawn up, which later led to the ratification of women's suffrage in 1920. It was through her writing she managed to improve the lives of many women. She criticized that they had not gained their proper place in society, that they were just seen as fulfilling women's duties instead of their personal potential. She wanted to rid the world of the idea of a man's woman. Margaret used her writings to spotlight the issues she had in mind, and the 19th century was the perfect time for reform, because by the 1840s, rapid sailing and steamships could bridge the Atlantic in little more than a week. As American cities grew in size and population, the market for American news coverage grew. This meant newspapers could compete with each other to provide coverage of breaking events, which is exactly what Fuller had. She shared the ideas of both idealism and realism and expressed both through her journalism and her actions. Everything she stated seemed like the ideal to most women, but it was not out of reach. Like many other reformers, Fuller also encouraged reforms in society, including prison reform and the emancipation of slaves in the United States. Her determination towards reform was a strong example of the possibility of true reform, which led many others to speak up about their own issues. We need to hear the excuses men make to themselves for their worthlessness. Margaret Fuller.